Hello and welcome to this session on configuring logging levels. In today's short training session, we're going to be looking at another one of the topics within this broad area of application administration. We're looking specifically at the idea of configuring the logging levels. This is all about making sure that system administrators have the knowledge needed to understand about what's involved and what are the implications of setting a logging level to a particular point. We'll be looking at the main system screens involved in the logging of different aspects of Sage CRM's activities, and we'll also explore some of the specific logs that which are of most interest to developers and implementers. Now, as I go through, we're going to be discovering that a system administrator can control the amount of information that is recorded about a user's interaction with Sage CRM. Here you can see that I'm just about to log on as a user, and the actions that any user performs within Sage CRM can be recorded not just in one single log, but actually within a collection of different logs within the system, depending on which bit of Sage CRM you're accessing at the time. So as a user navigates around the system, they're going to invoke different system behavior, and all of that information will be recorded into the logs. Here you can see I'm switching my dashboard, and so I'm using the interactive dashboards, and in turn, those dashboards have gadgets within them that pull back data using a combination of RESTful API calls, reports that are being invoked, SQL requests that are being made. All of this behavior, whether it's a workflow action that I'm taking, whether it is calling screens involving the loading of metadata, field definitions and translations, all of this is information that would be entered into the logs, including when system actions pass parameters and multiple requests are made to the server. All of these different hits that the server has, they're all the system actions that were taking place, all of the underlying SQL transactions that are taking place, and even if we had used something like the .NET 8 features, they would all be parts of Sage CRM where we're touching on aspects of the system and touching on the database to carry out, create, read, update, and delete tasks, all being recorded. And the change, as we make a change to application data and it's reloaded and redisplayed within the interface, what we are recording in the logs is the path that we have taken through the system and understanding the points in which the system can say, I did this was done, and we'll have a look in a moment at that particular logging level. Now, just in that short walk that I did through the product, I used features that straddled the architecture of Sage CRM. Now, Sage CRM has a hybrid architecture. You have the eWare DLL, that is an ISAPI extension, and that makes up the core interface of Sage CRM. But we also have the Apache Tomcat side of the architecture with web apps that look after the REST API, the delivery of the dashboards, and features such as mail merge or the data import and export. So different parts are, we touch on all of these, and they are all logged. They are all available points where information can be entered into the logs for us to be able to use to diagnose problems that may occur with the system. Now, here you can see that I'm just about to log on to Sage CRM as a system administrator. And once here, my own actions, as well as a system administrator, are being logged along with all of the other users. I need to switch into the admin screens, and I can now switch and navigate into the system area, and within that into the logging screen. So here you can see I've come into administration, system, logging. And you'll notice that there are 4 fields available that control the logging level of the main user interface. And then there are some available logs that can be accessed through this interface. Now, these are the files that can be accessed not just through the interface, but also through the server's operating system. But this screen provides an easy way of seeing all of the files and being able to access them in order to be able to send to support. I can use the drop-down list to see the full range of files that are available. In fact, there's a very large range of files. There's the labeling of the log files make it very simple to select the correct files when trying to solve an issue. The names, whether it's the .NET log or the SQL log, or perhaps it's the system log or the Tomcat CRM log, the names allow a system administrator to identify the requested file straight from the administration screen. You'll notice that when we go back into looking at the system, that each log file has a name pattern that includes a timestamp, and the logs available from the interface, you've got the Tomcat main, Tomcat CRM, Tomcat global functions, you've got logging around the Hibernate framework, Tomcat sync functions, there's the endpoint logs, SData1, SData2, you've got the Spring framework, you've got questions on the social connections and the SQL driver log. So lots of different things that might be of interest at different points. And typically you get to look at some of the more esoteric logs through being guided by support teams. From a system administrator's perspective and from an implementation perspective, there are probably 2 main types of logs that are the most useful. That's the system log and the SQL log. And they're the ones that certainly I would use on an almost daily basis to diagnose what's going on within a system, not necessarily to solve a problem. I may be trying to work out how a particular feature is working and what it's doing. Those are the 2 most useful. System logs themselves are most useful to the Sage support teams. And you can see, as I'm looking at the screen now, you can see the system logs are all listed out here, and they allow us to see what's going on at any particular time. And you can notice that you're able to pull up any of the logs that are listed within the interface. You can see that there's a little view button over on the right hand side. It becomes very easy to retrieve a particular log for a particular day as well. But actually, I can also filter the logs that we want to look at. So I can go and filter in to just look at the SQL logs. You might notice that there are gaps in the logging. This is because SQL logging can be set to, in this particular case, errors only or all queries over a threshold. And depending on the logging level that you have set for the logs, no log may be created on a particular day. So if we were to turn off logging, there wouldn't be any logs to look at, but typically you would have it on an error basis so that you can see where things are starting to go wrong. Now I'm going to return to the system logs and look on the view log icon to open the log. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean a lot to you or I. Just on the face of it, the Sage support team has tools that help them read and interpret the information in the log file, especially the system log. The SQL log is a little bit easier to be able to get to grips with because that is simply listing out all of the SQL that is sent from within the interface. Now, all of the logs are available not just through the user interface, but they're also available through the file system. So you can come at it through the operating system. The default location for the log files is down underneath the program files folder within Sage, within CRM, and then whatever the name of your instance is in my case, it's CRM, into the folder logs. Now, it's possible to change the default location of the logs, and that's described within the system administration guide. I wouldn't change things unless you need to. But here I've opened the system log, and this is allowing me to monitor the changes to the log as a user moves through the system. You can see that on the left-hand side of the screen, I've opened it up in Notepad++, and I've got on the right-hand side of the screen where I'm navigating through the system. This has a nice way of being able to see as focus is placed within CRM and you move to somewhere, click onto the Notepad screen, and you would see immediately the changes, the system information that as you move through the screens, what functionality is being invoked. Now, I can see back inside the system administration area that the logging level is set to 5 for maximum. Now, logs can grow very quickly to a very large size within Sage CRM. And within a production system, it is a better thing to do to reduce the logging level to the minimum until you need to investigate an issue and then turn the logging up. But you can turn logging completely off. And here you can see that I have actually gone and done that. I've turned logging, all system logging, completely off. And if I go back now into where I was looking earlier, I don't get any of the stream of information shown here. I've switched over, and as I move around Sage CRM, nothing is being recorded into the system log. So it ends up as a 0-sized log. Now you can see that in this system as well, that I have a logging level set for my SQL logging, and that's set to errors only. So I would only get an SQL log created if an error occurs. But if I want to learn about, as I enter into a particular screen, which view is being used, or what are the security parameters used in a particular screen, so I can start to make sure any of my customizations are right, well, I can change the logging level so that I can see all queries over a threshold. Now, in my system, I've left this threshold at 0 milliseconds so that every SQL statement will be recorded. And this is going to record all of the transactions generated by the eWare DLL and record them into the eWare SQL log file. And that's anything through the main interface is going to get recorded here. I've opened the eWare SQL log in my log file in my Notepad, and on my right hand side I can see where I've navigated inside Sage CRM, and this shows the SQL generated as a user moves through the system. And I said it can be very helpful in understanding what's going on when you move into a new context. You can see the loading of translations, you can see the loading of metadata, you can see as well which underlying view is used in any context. And this is a very useful thing to be able to see as you're trying to understand what Sage CRM is doing at any one particular moment. Now, the last setting for me to look at on this screen is the .NET logging option. And the .NET logging option, here I can turn it up to maximum, so I can then open the .NET log to be investigated. And I've happened to have navigated now within so I have my .NET log open on the left-hand side, and I have Sage CRM open on the right-hand side. And here I've navigated to one of the features inside Sage CRM that uses the .NET API. This happens to be the company narrative screen that uses a deterministic AI script to create a summary of all of the interactions around the company. There are other features such as the company relationships or the relationships tab, but here you can see details of the call inside the log as well. And what's more than this, if I look at, say, I've got my .NET and I've got my or I've got my other types of log, I can develop this idea a little bit further, because the logs can be read together. Every single transaction is time-stamped, so you can read these together to get a sense of what's happening. Now, I've not included the system log in this example, but here you can see I've got the .NET log and the SQL log, so I can clearly see how the action of the user in entering the narrative page is generating the information across these two logs. Now, that's just one part of the logging aspect. This screen provides access to all of the logs and the logging levels for the system log, the SQL log, and the .NET log. The logging for Java-based features, such as the interactive dashboard, is controlled in another way. And that's done through changing the XML file that controls the logging, which happens to be a log file called log4j2.xml. Now, on a Sage CRM server, locate and open that within the folder underneath your drive, program files, Sage, CRM. Look at the name of the instance, Tomcats, web apps, and then you have the name of the instance plus J. So in my case, it's CRM J, web inf classes, and we can see that we have this log4j2.xml file. If I open that, you can see the XML structure of this, and if I go to the end of this, I can locate the code that is described in the system administration guide. This is the XML that is described in the system administration guide to allow me to change this Java-based logging level. And in my case, I'm changing where it says log level error for the logger name com.sage.scrm, and I can change that to debug and save the file. So you've got this level in here, and that would control how much information is output into the log. But putting anything into the logs like this will cause Sage CRM, if you change it to debug, if you increase the logging levels as well in the other area, you're causing Sage CRM to consume more resources just by processing the logs. So you should always reduce logging to the minimum level in a production environment. So typically it will only be at the error level in the XML environments until you're finished or needing to do some troubleshooting, and you turn it up to a level. So production, minimal logging, investigation stage, turn the debug levels up, or the logging levels up. Now, all of these logs are available through the interface, as we've seen, all of the Java logs, all of the main user interface logs. And so we've now looked really at what we were going to cover. So we've seen about configuring of the logging levels for Sage CRM. In the next lesson, tomorrow, we'll be looking at the documents and reports configuration. But let's see if anyone has got any questions. Thank you all, and goodbye.